Good morning and welcome everyone to the Clark County School Advisory Council. This is my first meeting. I'm been on the council for about a year, an alternate to this group, and so it's my pleasure to be chairing and facilitating this morning with the help of Jenna Kay, who can help identify people on the online and in person so we don't miss anyone. I came onto the council last December, about a year ago, and I represent Council District 5, which is the northern district of the county, pretty much from Ridgefield, Battleground, La Center, all the way up to the Lewis River. And so I guess without further ado, let's go around and do introductions. Jenna, would you like to call on people?
Sure, and maybe we can start with folks in the room. So if we want to go to your right, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great, good morning. My name is Kimberly Armstrong, Deputy Superintendent, Evergreen Public Schools.
Good morning, my name is Jill Walters, Director of Business Engagement and Expansion at Columbia River Economic Development Council.
Thank you. So that's who we have in the room so far. My name is Jenna Kay, and I'm joined with my colleague Amy Wooten with Clark County Community Planning, who are providing staff support today. But now we'll shift to folks online. So I'll just go down the list of people I see, and then if you can introduce yourself, that would be great. Bridget McLeeman.
Yes, I'm Bridget McLeeman. I'm here as representing Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Next, Chris Griffith.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Griffith, Interim School District.
Thank you. Next is John Anzalone. Okay, we'll come back to Superintendent. Next, Jordan.
Hey everybody, Jordan Bogey. I am a senior policy analyst supporting the county council. Really excited to be here with y'all today. Also, I don't know if other folks online are getting this, but there's a bit of an echo in the room, so I don't know if there's a couple different mics on.
Okay, thank you. We think we've addressed the issue, but please let us know if you continue to hear echoes. Let's see, let's go next to Kimberly Walker Norton.
Good morning, everybody. Kimberly Walker Norton, Clark County Public Health. I am the School Health and Safety Program Manager.
Thank you. Leanne Bremer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leanne Bremer. I'm counsel to the school districts, assisting them on their capital facilities planning and impact fee calculations.
Okay. If I've missed anybody, please feel free to chime in now to introduce yourself. Okay, and then we, Oliver, would you like to introduce yourself? We have one more new addition in the room.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Oliver Ojaka, Community Planning Director.
All right, thank you.
Great, so I believe that's everyone. If someone joins Jenna, maybe you can make us aware of that and they can introduce themselves. So our first order of business is to review and adopt the April 2023 meeting notes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? Assuming that's a yes, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second that.
Thank you. Unless there's any further comments, I would ask folks to signify with a aye if they approve.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? No? All right, the minutes are approved. So let's just jump right in here to legislative priorities. I think that's a lot of what's on people's minds today. So Jordan, do you want to kick this off?
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to. So we at the County Council are working on adopting our final legislative priorities for the year. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit of what the County Council is thinking and what I'm hearing, as their policy analyst in terms of legislative priorities for the upcoming 2024 short session. As I'm sure you all are aware, this is just a 60-day session here in 2024. So it will be a little bit more limited in scope in the even years than it is in the odd years. And so there's a little bit less focus on a wide range of bills as there are in some other years. But some of the key topic areas that the council is looking at currently include housing and homelessness, infrastructure and development, indigent defense and public safety, and lake management. And so I'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. But really, the focus of the County Council in terms of housing and homelessness priorities moving forward, the council is very concerned about incentivizing development in the county and affordable housing. We are looking at efforts for residents of mobile or manufactured homes parks to be able to perhaps purchase their parks before it goes up to sale to a private developer or a large corporation. There have been some noticing requirements that have happened recently, saying that basically before these parks go for sale, that there needs to be a notice period. But I think there is interest in maintaining ownership of those residents by those residents. And so that's something that the County Council is looking into in terms of housing policies that help, preserve low and moderate income housing units before they go away, funding, additional tools for localities to be able to provide more housing. The county is working to distribute affordable housing funds as well, and would welcome, I think, at the state level, any other support for that. We also are looking at, as part of HB 1110, there is some support for cities to increase middle housing, but there's not the same kind of funding for counties. And so I think there's a request to look into that as well. On the homelessness side of things, obviously increasing the supply of housing is a long-term solution toward reducing that. But some of the things that have been discussed and that the council is looking at as potential priorities include things like more funding for co-responder programs and liability protections for co-responders. And so those are things where you may have a behavioral health specialist who's out there with a fire personnel or public safety personnel and ensuring that they have both the funding and able to allow them to help folks, as well as liability protections to help ensure that they're able to stay safe when they're out there as well. I know that there's a priority among the council looking at childcare availability and access, looking at potentially supporting some changes to state code to allow for the use of residential buildings to be used for multifamily construction, and looking at increasing capital funding for affordable housing to the extent that that's available at the state, and increasing accessible and affordable housing and support services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's something we've been hearing from community services as something that that department would like us to follow up with as legislation is pending. And so that's one of the biggest areas, but the council is also looking at prioritizing infrastructure and development opportunities from the legislature. And so this includes Clark County getting its fair share of funding and support for development of broadband throughout the county. Obviously, we've seen how important that is, not just for work, but really for all facets of life. There is a lot of money coming from the federal government in the next few years through the BEAD program, which is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, which you may have heard of. In addition to that, the county has invested ARPA funds to support development of broadband throughout the county. And to the extent that the state legislature is working on broadband issues or through the Washington State Broadband Office, that is a priority as well. I've been hearing, multimodal transit as a priority, and to the extent that the county can get state support for that, improving the ability of folks to get around the county, improving sidewalks, infrastructure, safety. That's important. We just had a meeting actually yesterday with folks from Ridgefield. They're looking for support from the legislature for planning money for the 179th interchange on the I-5 there. And I think it sounds like council is in support of that as well. And so that's something that we'll be pursuing at the legislative level to the extent that we can in this session and likely beyond. There's also a push on indigent defense and public safety. So the county is working on setting up its own indigent defense office. Prior to this, the county has historically contracted with attorneys to provide indigent defense services. And so Clark County is actually by far the largest county in the state to not have its own indigent defense office. The next largest is Walla Walla County, which has I think about 70,000 people in it, so much smaller. But looking at support from the state for those indigent defense services generally, and that's also a priority at the legislative level of the Washington State Association of Counties as well. We're also looking at supporting our jail capital fund and supporting behavioral health programs in the jail as well. The state kicked in a lot of money to support the building of a lot of jails in the 80s. Clark County is not the only place where this is true, but now these jails are aging. And so, they were built with state dollars and state support. And so I think there's a hope that there may be legislative support for retrofitting, rebuilding, upgrading, things like that, moving into the future. And then finally, the county is really interested in water quality in particular, as development is occurring, as agricultural activities are happening in the county, making sure that nutrient loading in our watershed and our lakes are healthy for folks to be able to live, work, play, recreate. And so ongoing funding to support both Lackmus Lake and Vancouver Lake treatments and support water quality in the watershed is also a priority of the county. And so at a high level, those are some of the things that the county council is interested in this next session. And I think it's likely to carry over into future sessions given the short nature of this session. But that's where the county's at right now. And I think something that I would be interested in as someone who's supporting the council, and I won't speak for Councilor Marshall here, but I think would be interested as well is where can we find intersections to support schools in the county too through some of these priorities and beyond. I think there is an interest in making sure that we're talking to our stakeholders and understanding what your needs are in this next process. And so where can we find those points of connection?
Thank you, Jordan. Does anyone have any immediate questions for Jordan? I guess we're not seeing any. So it sounds as though, even though it is a very short session, nonetheless, we're very, very ambitious in the scope of issues we'll be looking at. And I would echo also your desire to look for intersections where we can support each other. That would be very important for us. And then we have lobbyists that represent the county. We have 2 lobbyists, and during the legislative session, we meet with them weekly on a Monday morning, and that's something that you could be accessible if you wanted to listen into the conversation. It's not recorded, but it is something that's available just to stay tuned to what the county is up to and thinking about. So let's move then to the school district priorities. And I imagine, I don't know if you've all collectively come up with your joint list of legislative priorities, but however you would like to present, please move forward.
Thank you, on Clark County. But let me just share briefly with you what we shared at a recent legislative forum that we held, and that was just earlier this week. We collectively had a couple of things to say about the priorities. And before I share those with you, and again, my colleagues will maybe help me fill in some of the detail, I wanted to start by saying thank you to all those who support public education, including our legislators and our elected officials in our community. We now, more than ever, need the support from a financial perspective, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but more than that, and almost more importantly, we need the belief in public education. So when we ask about those intersections and those things that we can do together, I'm going to ask that first one. When we are out with our stakeholders, when we're out in the community, and we all have networks, when the concept and the conversation of public education comes up, can we all agree that we're going to think positively about public education, that we're going to talk specifically about what we know of the successes of public education, that we're going to talk about the fact that almost everybody in this room and on this call, and most of our colleagues that we intersect with, were products of public education. And we would not be where we are today without that investment. So that's the first thing, and that doesn't cost us any dollars. And so we're really kind of doing that campaign of gratitude, but also that request of belief. We believe in our communities, and we need our communities to believe in us. And then thank you to our legislators. They did make some investments in public education, and we're grateful. Special education, there was a down payment towards the very large bill. That is the discrepancy between what it costs for us to support our students in special education and what the state provides. We will continue to ask for that continued investment. So thank you for that. Also, we received mental health wellness supports from the legislators to help with the very, very challenging and complex work of supporting not just our students as we move out of a impactful global pandemic, but also supporting our staff. We are the largest employers, most of us, within our communities, and we have staff that count on us for their mental wellness and their financial wellness as well. So we received some support for that, so thank you to our legislators. And then I will move into the next theme, which is hopeful. Right now, we probably all hear a narrative, and that goes back to my first point, that public education, it hasn't, it didn't, and we can't. My friends, I'm here to tell you we have, we can, and we are. And we are hopeful because we have every single day in our classrooms wonderful things happening. Our challenge, and that is my challenge as well, is how do I communicate better about the great things that happen every day? Just yesterday, I was in a high school where the students in the Camas and Washougal school districts partner around food drive. So here are students volunteering their entire Saturday and Sunday to be out in the community saying, could you help? Could you help support those who don't have food as we move into the holiday season? And I asked the student, who's about 17 years old, I said, why do you volunteer? And he said, well, if you needed something, wouldn't you want someone to help you? There it is. That's the student that we are helping support for the future. That is the future of our community and our nation and our state. So thank you to all of those folks that are helping and sharing the good news and the hopeful news that we have every day. When we think about those opportunity gaps that I was just talking about closing, we are closing those. Another detail just from my school district is we have one of the highest graduation rates, on-time graduation rates we've ever had because everyone's working collectively together. In one of our elementary schools, it's a high poverty school, we had a 27% percentage point increase in our mathematics scores over 1 year. And that is not unique to that one building. That is the work that we're all doing collectively together, and it's making a difference. So I want to say publicly, we are closing the opportunity gap. The funding gap, so let's talk about that. And our priorities really consist of, as what we shared, of 4 things. The prototypical funding model, I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's the legislative function that says this is how many teachers a school building needs, or this is how many custodians that a school building needs, et cetera. And the model is inadequate. It is not giving us the amount of teachers that we need, classified personnel, bus drivers who are critical, our secretaries who are the front lines of greeting. So we, in the collective districts, we have about a 50% gap in what the state gives us to supply classified positions, so that secretary, that bus driver, the culinary services, between what the state gives us. So that's a large gap. We also have something that maybe you don't think about, but the cost of doing business in today's economy, probably you do because you all are paying bills just like us, utilities, insurance to insure your school district, those did not go down in cost. In fact, they went up significantly. In fact, the average insurance cost to cover for liability for your district in case something happens, which we have to have, 32% increase over 1 year. And the state improved that by 3.1%. So you can see that large gap continues. And so we're really talking about those pieces of just the operating costs in today's economy. And then we will talk about special education, which I already did, but we still have in my district, and I know we have Evergreen here, yours is a lot bigger of a bill, but ours is almost $1 million still that we're relying on local dollars to help support our students with special needs. So we would ask for that. And then the last thing that we collectively are asking to pay attention to is school facilities. And that's not just how we get schools built, but it's how we maintain our schools. We are all very challenged to find the resources to keep new roofs, to keep flooring up to health standards, to build new buildings when we are so packed because we have growth in our communities, to make sure that we have safe turf on the football field. That's about $1.3 million to replace that. And you have to have it. So those are the kinds of facilities pieces that we worry about. I'm not sure if you're tracking the state, but this last session that we just got finished with, there were 7 bond issues out there from school districts across the state, and only 1 passed. And that is what's been going on for the last several years as it relates to bonds. And we also, capital projects, there were 4 out, 2 failed. EP&O levies, that hits home for the Washougal School District. We failed our levy, which is how we manage about 18% of our operating costs. We were lucky enough, our community came together and we passed our levy as we reran it again. But those are the kinds of very complex situations that we're all working through. And then finally, I will leave you with this thought and then turn it over to my colleagues to add their experience. We are managing very complex organizations just like you are, and also in the business world, as also our legislators are. And together, when we think about doing the work and intersecting and where we can help each other, that makes the work doable. So we are eager to continue to partner. We're eager to continue to talk positively about our great news. And we're also eager to make sure that we're articulating clearly where our challenges are and how we can work together to overcome those. And then finally, we ask, this is where I started and this is where I'll end, that we have a positive belief in public education at the Safeway, in the grocery store, in the backyard get-together, in your holiday homes coming up. When people ask about public education, say, yeah, they're doing great work. So there is the Mary Templeton speech. It's over. Thank you, everybody. But I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to let you know some of the thinking that we shared recently as a team.
Great, thank you so much for that, and I appreciate the positive messaging embedded in that we can all share every day as we go about our business. Would anyone else like to speak up related to legislative priorities? I'm not hearing anyone or seeing anyone. I think related to, I know that there are county decisions that impact the schools related to growth and development, and I've seen that very much in my district for Battleground and Ridgefield, and they've had failures with their levies and bond measures as well. If there's specific legislation related to that you are aware of, I think we would also be interested in learning about that.
Just waiting for any colleague to check in, okay. Just as I think about bonds specifically, we have a supermajority required right now to pass a bond, and that's 60%. And as you look at the bond measures, I just referenced that failed. Many of them hit the 50% mark, but they didn't hit the 60% mark, which is a supermajority, which is required. So we would ask that, and I know the legislators are thinking about this, and I know there's legislation that's being considered, but we would ask all of us to support the notion that 50% plus one vote is the will of the people, and if that's what it takes to get a school building built, then we would ask for that. Our EP&O levies, which is our operating cost levies, those are 50% plus one vote. It's just that the bonds are 60% supermajority. So we would ask that there be consistency and get to the 50%.
Let's keep talking about that. Anything else on legislative priorities? Okay, maybe we're ready to move on. So let's move on. One of the big tasks in front of the county is the update of our comprehensive plan, which is due in June of 2025, and that's really a broad brush of the landscape where things are, where we develop, where we have industrial lands, where we have agriculture. All of those things are included in the comprehensive plan update, plus some additional things that I think Oliver will, or maybe Oliver will update us on, but I'll leave it to you to give us an update on the comp plan.
Thank you so much. So this is Jenna again with Community Planning, and my director, Oliver Orgiaco, is here as well. And I'm going to start by giving a brief presentation on just what we're up to and where we're at in terms of the planning process. And then both Oliver and I are happy to answer questions at the end. So I was going to start with a broad overview on the whole project just to create some context, and then after that I'd like to talk more specifically about school-specific items that are tying into this project. So this slide is showing an overview of the project process and timeline. And as Councilor Marshall mentioned, the county's periodic update of its comprehensive plan is due by June 30th, 2025. And so right now, we are in this first phase of project initiation, and I'll go into more detail on what's involved in that. But as we progress going to next year, we're going to be really focused on shaping the plan, and then by the end of next year, we'll be moving into the review and refine phase, and then in 2025, that's when the adoption process will be taking place. So I have a few slides that have a lot of detail on them. I'm just going to highlight a few items off of them to provide a little bit more detail on what's going on in each of these phases. So for instance, in phase one, so far the county council has selected a population projection and an employment projection. And one of their next decisions that's coming up is the allocation of that population to each jurisdiction in the county. So that's coming up soon. And these are going to be some of these key planning assumptions that we'll then use to plan for the next 20 years. As we move into next year, this is when we're going to start working on the environmental impact statement process and scoping the project further and really starting to get into the consideration of various growth alternatives. So we know how many people we're planning for, where and how are they going to go in the county. So we'll start to have those types of discussions next year. And then also next year, that's when we'll start reviewing the comprehensive plan text more closely to see if we need to revise background information and any of the policies that are in the actual plan itself. In our third phase, so by late next year, this is when the County Council will be selecting a preferred growth alternative, and then all of the final materials will revolve around aligning with that preferred alternative. And then as noted, the adoption process will be taking up much of the first half of 2025 to finish the project. Okay, so now I'm going to circle back and talk about school-specific items that'll fit into the whole project. So as you all know, as part of this plan, school district capital facilities need to be incorporated into the county's comprehensive plan, so we adopt them by reference. And so us staff in community planning will coordinate with Leanne Bremer on the specifics on when we need information from the school districts for us to then bring through our process. But in general, we'll need updated school capital facility plans sometime in 2024 so that we can get them to our Planning Commission and County Council in 2025. So that's high level what the timing looks like. And then they wouldn't become effective until the County Council adopts the comprehensive plan, so they would become effective in mid-year 2025. Okay, so that's capital facilities plans. And then, as some of you may know,
Jenna,
the county's comprehensive plan also...
Jenna, this is Leanne.
Go ahead, Leanne.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just a question. 6 school districts just updated their capital facilities plans that were adopted this year by the county and various jurisdictions. Are you expecting, is the county expecting that those 6 also update their plans next year?
The short answer is yes, and Oliver can expand on that if you want more background or explanation.
Okay, well, I can discuss it with you offline if need be. We had previous conversations about this, and I had understood that we would only focus on the 4 that were up for update this coming year.
This is Oliver Liam Bremer. I think the reason we answered yes is that we don't know yet what the preferred plan will look like and whether that will have any impact at all to the existing school districts. You know how your boundaries are set up, so we don't know if any of our local jurisdictions will be expanding the urban growth boundary. And if that's the case, it could potentially impact your specific district. So that is why we are saying yes. When we get to the preferred plan and you look at your capital facilities plan and didn't see a need to update, you may resubmit what you already submitted to us. So it is just something that we have to be aware of, that the preferred plan will really determine what level of additional work is necessary.
I see. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So in addition to the capital facilities plans, The county's comprehensive plan does include a schools chapter, and this is an optional element of comprehensive plans and was really developed and with the school district several years ago in collaboration with them. And the chapter includes background information on schools in the county, as well as some goals and policies related to schools and growth management, particularly around facility needs. And so staff will be reviewing the chapter in 2024 and making revisions as needed. So we would be interested in, if there are any reviewers from the school districts who'd like to help review and give us feedback on changes they'd like to see, that would be great. You know, we'll also be asking the public if they have any suggestions for changes. And then once we have revised text for that chapter, it would then go to the county's planning commission and county council in 2025.
Jenna, could you provide a link to that so it'd be easy for people to access and take a look at?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we also wanted to highlight some recent Growth Management Act legislation that could potentially have a significant impact on this comprehensive plan periodic update project, particularly related to housing and climate change. So in 2021, House Bill 1220 amended the Growth Management Act to instruct local governments to plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all income levels. And this language significantly strengthened the previous goal, which was just to encourage affordable housing. And so this amended law also directed the Department of Commerce to project future housing needs for jurisdictions by income bracket and made significant updates to how jurisdictions are to plan for housing in the housing element of our comprehensive plans. And so these new changes to local housing elements include planning for sufficient land capacity for housing needs. So this includes planning for all economic segments of the population, so moderate, low, very low, and extremely low income households, as well as housing for emergency housing and permanent supportive housing. The legislation also requires that we provide for moderate density housing options within urban growth areas. So this includes, but isn't limited to, duplexes and triplexes and townhomes. This legislation also requires making adequate provisions for housing for existing and projected needs of all economic segments in the community, including documenting programs and actions needed to achieve the housing availability. And finally, this legislation also requires identifying racially disparate impacts, displacement, and exclusion in housing policies and regulations, and beginning to take action to undo those impacts. And identifying areas of higher risk of displacement and establishing anti-displacement policies. So we highlight this legislation because it's really going to change and impact how the county is planning for housing, different than we've ever done before. And Oliver, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, and that's the reason why I said that your capital facilities plan may change. For example, this new bill now allows the counties and the cities to allow for duplex, triplex, fourplex townhouses in single-family districts. So it's no longer exclusive to just single family. So when that is done, it may inherently increase capacity or potential for new students being added to your district without really changing zoning. So those are some of the areas that it will make sense for us to coordinate with the school district, so you know exactly if we are adding additional units within the existing boundary, it will be proper for the school district to take a look at that to see potentially where additional, because of additional housing unit, how that may or may not impact your district, depending on where those students are going to be coming from.
If I might, I have a question. So my understanding is that the city at the same time is working on the same project. So will you be communicating what you're thinking with the cities, the municipalities? The reason I ask that is we all sit within Clark County, but then like Washougal is a tier 3. So ours is a different impact as it relates to what the city has to do as it relates to the law. So that would be different for Evergreen as an example. So I would just be, I would wonder if there might be some coordination between the county and the cities as you are, because what you're doing basically, I can speak for Washougal, is that which is outside of our city jurisdiction, which is our county jurisdiction, you're potentially impacting additional housing opportunity. The same thing is happening within the city jurisdiction, potentially impacting additional housing opportunity. And every housing opportunity, especially if it's addressing income level and lower income level, does potentially bring children to the school districts. Anyway, I just wanted to know if you were coordinating, and I do understand that they're looking to fulfill the new law by around 2025. Is that what your time frame is? Okay, just checking. Thank you.
That is correct. If I may, the House bill, even though it's not included here, which is 1110, requires the cities of Vancouver, Commerce, and Washougal to plan for those housing type that I mentioned. So we will be coordinating with them, and we are coordinating with them, but they are also separately looking at how to fulfill the intent of that law. But we are coordinating. Yeah, we are coordinating with them. And we are just, I would say, beginning next year, early January, we will do the allocation along with the city, so they will each know what number of housing units they're supposed to be planning for, and then it's up to them, not the county will dictate, but it's up to them to dictate how they're going to provide that, yes. But the coordination is happening. Thank you.
Many of the school districts, there's maybe multiple cities within the school district and a lot of county as well, so there could be multiple approaches to this. Any other questions while we paused? Okay, I think proceed.
Okay. So then the other major legislative change to the Growth Management Act recently happened during the last legislative session when a climate change planning bill was passed. And what this legislation does is it adds a climate change and resiliency goal to the Growth Management Act. And it requires the county and the cities within the county to add climate elements to our comprehensive plan. So this is brand new, has never been a requirement before as part of our growth management planning. And so we don't have a lot of time to do all of the work required in this new bill. So the county and the cities, we are going to be working very hard over the next year to develop climate elements for the first time. And you know, one of the reasons we are bringing this legislation up to you all is that we see a few opportunities for connection with the school districts as we do this new work. So one is we may need data from the school districts, particularly, you know, we're going to have to do a greenhouse gas inventory and things like that, and so we may need some data to fold into what's going on in the county. We also want to make sure that a youth perspective is included in this work. So for instance, we are about to start the process of forming a community advisory group. We have a youth position in that advisory group. You know, so that's one way, you know, an opportunity for interested students. And I think overall staff are happy to collaborate. You know, if you see an opportunity within your school district, whether it's a civics class or an extracurricular group that wants to be involved in this topic, we are happy to collaborate and figure out how to connect on it and make sure there's a youth perspective, you know, on their future, right? And so I think I'll just wrap up with overall for this whole comprehensive plan project, we're happy to connect with you on involving teachers, youth, families in the process. On any of the topics covered in this plan. I mean, this plan is pretty broad. It covers a lot of different things. So if you have anyone on your staff who is interested in engaging further, I have my contact information on the slide. They are welcome to reach out, and we're happy to figure out an approach that makes sense to do that. Oliver.
The only thing I will add relative to the climate change is that in the past, we have been coordinating with the school district capital facilities manager. You talked about school facilities. There may be a requirement for the school district to plan on energy efficiency, looking at the energy efficiency route, and there may be some grant opportunities to do so, both at the federal and at the state local level. So this is one area where opportunities exist because of the funding. So this is something that we would like someone, whether it's you make that choice to make your facilities managers available to be part of the team, we welcome that, because I see opportunities and potentially new policies that will affect your school district, your school facilities, and how you build in the future.
Do you feel you have the correct contact for each of our operations folks that manage this?
Ask that be provided to us again.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
I know some folks have retired, so we like to know, work with new faces.
If you just reach out, we'll make sure that you get the right folks so that they're part of that conversation.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so that was it for our presentation on the comp plan. This will be going on for another couple years, so we'll keep giving you updates when we meet, and you know, when we do get to the point in a few months when we're actually in the review process for like the schools chapter, we'll make sure we reach out as, you know, as it's timely, as we get to those different pieces along the way. So, but glad to answer any other questions if there are any.
Any other questions? Thank you. You covered a lot of ground there. And I would just say, even if there's a class, if students want to participate in local government, we're going to be having some very interesting and maybe heated debates on some of these issues as we go forward, but they really are, you know, how we're implementing global issues at the local level. So I'd encourage that participation. The next thing is really for all of us, if there's any other updates or items for discussion, I'll pause and listen.
No, not from me. Only thing I will ask is that we are available to come out and talk to the school district. I have gone to Evergreen School District in particular, and I have been invited also to listen to some. I'm available to come talk to students, talk to other groups on what we are doing and how that may impact them. When I went to Richfield, I was even encouraging high school students, if they go to university, let them consider land use planning as an opportunity, because there is indeed a lot to do as we look at how we grow and how we, what we do impact. I used to tell my own kids, oh yeah, we're driving on this road, somebody planned for it to occur. You live in this subdivision, somebody planned for it to occur. But people don't really realize that. But I encourage students to also consider land use planning and architecture, and including other courses. But we are available to come to any school district that invites us.
Thank you for that, Oliver. Anyone else?
Just actually a small thank you for explaining the thoughts around we're here, we're planning for the future. And as you work on your comprehensive plan, your 20-year plan, I would just urge, and as you continue to develop these ideas and conversations, really broad relationships and partnerships. And I say that from an economic development standpoint. While we are through working on our comprehensive economic development plan for CRDC right now, we also have to be very thoughtful and work with our county on the right balance of housing projects, and homes and price points that are available for all of our community, while also factoring in a savings of land for businesses that want to come to our region. So we have to make a delicate balance between preparing for the housing to come and saving the other room for some of our businesses, because these businesses that are looking to come to our region or expand in our region also offer the opportunity for employment. And with our K through 12 and post-secondary education, we're working on developing our next workforce, and we'd like to keep them here in our area, in our region. That's a very big issue for us as well. So we hope through these discussions that we talk about economic development partnerships with the county, with our districts, with our school districts, so that we're working in unison and we've got the same goals in mind for one another. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Jill. Anyone else? Okay. Well, we're right on schedule here. We have 5 minutes to wrap up and debrief, talk about future meetings and topics, timing of meetings. I know you have been for the last, several years, meeting twice a year. When we meet again, that would be in the spring, I'm sure after the legislative session. There'd be things to talk about then. Is there anything in particular that people would like to raise in terms of issues for the next meeting in the spring, or if you're interested in meeting more frequently?
I would not be opposed to having a continual update on the comprehensive plan as it progresses. That's a large impact with all of the pieces that are attached. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. There's a lot that we'll be wrestling with in the next 2 years, and I'm sure that there'll be plenty to continue to talk about in the spring. Any other thoughts?
This is Jenna. I would just add, just to remind sort of the group, we've been typically focusing the spring meeting more on development updates, so can absolutely do comp plan updates as part of that, but we'll also have community development, share a little bit more about what's getting built right now as well. And then we've been focusing more on legislation in the fall. So I guess I'd also just check if that feels good still, or if you'd like to see those main topics shift at all.
There might be a little debrief related to the legislative session that would be worth checking in on, from my perspective.
All right. Well, we'll be working on scheduling the meetings for next year. So you'll see scheduling emails go out probably in the next few weeks. And then we'll have a firm date on when the next meeting will be, but we'll be aiming for sometime in the spring 2024.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation. It's my pleasure to be part of your meeting today and to meet everyone, and I hope for a continued dialogue even apart from these meetings. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.